Tracy
Not
Novick.
about vegetables.
Tracy Novick is running for school committee. She's not on the school committee. She's a challenger for this office. So we're going to start off. We're going to give her a minute and a half to answer the question. Tracy, why should we vote for you?
Because we need new people on the school committee. I go to the school committee meetings and I sit there and I think of all of the things that ought to be said and all of the arguments that ought to be made, and they don't get made. The school committee has this sort of very go along, get along, don't question each other or the administration attitude, which for a system which is educating 23,000 kids, which is the largest employee in the city of Worcester, is just not, it's not an effective way of running the system. And so that's something that I actually tend to do pretty well, is ask hard questions and bring things to people's attention. The height of this for me was, I think I actually already mentioned this on the show, was we passed a $300 million budget for the schools for fiscal year 10. We were told that this coming year, fiscal year 11, we were probably going to have to lay off 400 teachers. And there was no effort made by the school committee to really do much of anything to try to stave that off. The budget was presented as pretty much a retread of the 09 budget, which is what the administration would do, what the administration should do. But then it's up to the school committee to set different priorities, and there was really very little motion put into that. And to me, that's just, it's an abrogation of their responsibility.
Do you have any credentials that would make you a reasonable candidate for this office?
Yeah, well, I was a teacher before I was a parent. In fact, I worked for Brendan's dad, which he can tell you that I'm a bit of a rabble-rouser. Not so much Brendan, but his dad. So I did that. So I've been in the classroom. I've seen that side of it. It did the teaching under ed reform. I taught high school English, and then now I've got kids in the system. I've got a third grader and a first grader and a 3-year-old. So, and I've been also going to public meetings, city council meetings, school committee meetings, state legislature meetings. I pay attention to the national press in terms of what's going on with education, which is something else that's a bit lacking, I think, at the local level, is that we've got a kind of a national thing going on right now with Duncan and with some of the money that's coming through stimulus, where the national education system is, I wouldn't say staging a takeover, but they're certainly trying to extend their power at the local level. And there's not a lot of conversation going on, I think, at the state or the local level about what exactly that means, and whether or not this is something that we should encourage or should be working against or should be working around. And I think that's really something that ought to happen, because it's going to make a very big difference, particularly in urban areas like Worcester.
Do you have any questions?
I actually do have a question, not really directly related to your campaign, although I guess we could figure out a way to tie it in. Do you know how many students per year Worcester loses to, say, private schools, or do we track those numbers?
I don't think we track where they go.
Not where they go, but just in general, like maybe a rough like percentage or raw number of how many students year to year leave. I'm just curious, like what the long range projections look like for funding based on a per pupil basis.
You know, we're actually going up.
We are.
Largely because we've got more kindergartners coming in than we have seniors graduating.
Okay.
So this year and next year, we're both supposed to be gaining around 1,000 students. So we've actually got an increasing population in terms of, like you said, funding per pupil. That's the number I know.
Is it the same dollar value when it comes to funding per pupil? Like, is a kindergartner worth as much as a senior to kind of offset? I mean, obviously you don't spend X number of dollars on every student. It's a pool of funds that get spread around. So I mean, if we have more kindergartners coming in theory, that could offset budget shortages or a little bit pad.
To a certain extent, yeah. The place where the money also comes into play is whether or not they're kids that are Title I kids, so kids that are below the poverty level, because we get more federal money for kids who are that.
Excellent. I don't have any other questions.
All right. Do you have any other? Actually, I should ask you a question. So I have never been a student in the Worcester schools.
Neither have I.
I have no children. I feel sort of ambivalent about, as a product of public education, I feel deeply ambivalent about public education. why should it matter to me? I mean, and maybe it shouldn't matter to me. Do you think it should matter to me who's on the school committee?
Oh yeah, because this is exactly the same thing that you were talking about with Chandler Street. It's people's impression of the city. So, if you live in Holden, what's your impression of the Worcester Public Schools? Oh my goodness, I would never send my child there. That's, it's a horrible place. Children are unsafe. They're not learning. Blah 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 blah.
That's my impression of the Massachusetts public schools in general.
Regardless of
I would feel like if I was in Holden, I would be equally screwed. But that's just me.
And the other thing is that the thing that I think that you guys probably know also because of the work you guys are doing in various other ways is that for all that Worcester's the second largest city in New England, it's surprisingly easy in some ways to affect some change at the city level.
Yes.
Because first of all, there aren't that many people who actually get involved, and secondly, you get involved, you start to learn who to talk to, how the process works, and what buttons to push. And so, in terms of change happening, it's certainly possible in Worcester. The thing you guys were talking about in terms of Chandler Street and what does it look like now? Okay, so that was a group of teenagers, and it was a summer, and now Chandler Street is a better place to be, a better place to drive down. And those sorts of incremental improvements are possible. I have to say, incidentally, I was at the school committee meeting yesterday, and I was very impressed by the superintendent. It was really sort of the first time that Melinda Boone was not only in the superintendent's chair, but actually had been working enough to have things to say. And she's much more actively involved in the process of the meeting than any superintendent I've seen in Worcester before. In terms of, someone asking for a report, and usually it would go to subcommittee, and she's saying, actually, I think I really need to bring that back to all of you. I think you all need to actually have this information. It looks to me as though she's very active, very hands-on, and actually has some, we need to watch her, obviously, but has some good instincts, perhaps, about running an urban system. So I found that really encouraging.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Brendan, how's it going?
doing pretty good, man.
School starting next week?
Yeah, my son is starting his first year in the Worcester Public Schools, preschool up at West Attic.
Well, good luck with that.
Looking forward to getting involved with the PTA.
Awesome. Good luck.
I don't know what's going to hit him.
Good luck with that. Anyway, I'm Mike Benedetti. As we've said, this is the 508 Show. Thanks for watching this week. Again, if you're running for a city office, pieandcoffee@gmail.com is the best way to get a hold of us. Come on, be on the show. If you have any other comments, that's another great way to give us those comments. And we'll talk to you next week.